Walking the road, awakening hope, welcoming men to the table. Every night, outreach teams from the Emmaus Ministries are out on Chicago streets, helping men who have been forced to prostitute themselves in order to survive. To hear stories from those streets and learn how Emmaus is helping rebuild lives, let's welcome Al Tauber, who has been on Emmaus staff since 2004, when he and his wife were asked to develop music and dramatic monologues to tell the men's stories. We also welcome Haley Hatcher, who started volunteering with Emmaus 3 years ago and is now their ministry coordinator, helping to run the drop-in center, the outreach teams, and prison ministry. How did Emmaus get started?
Well, we were founded by a deacon in the Roman Catholic Church. His name is Deacon John Green. He was out on a walk with a woman named Edwina Gately. She ran a ministry to women in prostitution. And he noticed some men standing across the street and asked her about them, said, who are they? What are they doing? He thought maybe they were pimps. But she said, no, they're prostituting too, but nobody works with them. Nobody cares about them. And this stuck with John. And later on, when he came back out, he really sought out these men and listened to them. He spent a lot of time in bars, just listening and hearing some of the stories of some of the men that he was meeting. And from that, all of Emmaus, all that we do really grew out of that.
What is the significance of the name Emmaus Ministries?
We take our name from the Bible, Luke 24, when Jesus meets the two disciples on the road to Emmaus. They're at a very low point in their life and walking away from the church. That seems significant. We do like Jesus did, and we meet them on the streets. We do like Jesus did and ask questions and listen to them before we really ever try to speak into their lives. And we also find it really significant that when they reach their destination, they wound up inviting Jesus into their home, and it was at the table that they recognized him for who he really was. And so we also find the center, one of the centers of our ministry is our table. We have a big long table where we share meals. We try to make it as much like home as we possibly can.
Many people are unaware of male prostitution. What's the scope of the problem in Chicago?
Well, our executive director has been looking at a lot of data analysis and seeing how many men and boys are affected by male prostitution, and we've seen that there's about 3,000 to 5,000 men and boys that have not been reached in just Chicago alone.
Share some of the stories of the men you've met.
I was a volunteer with Emmaus before I came on on full-time staff. And one of the days that I was there, one of our men, Mark, came in with this baby cat, this little kitten. And he told us this story about being on the CTA. And this man had the cat, and he said that he was hitting the cat. And Mark said that he beat the guy up and stole the cat. And here he was in the ministry center with this brand new cat. And we were like, oh, okay, great. That was a couple of years ago. And every time Mark came into the ministry center, he has this baby cat that he named Freya. And it brought a lot of joy to a lot of the men there and a lot of the staff too. And about May of last year, we got a call from Mark saying that he had been picked up by the cops and that he needed someone to take Freya. And one of our staff members, Sil, and our CAIO members, Heather, went down to the police station and picked up Freya. And she had been passed from staff member to staff member. And when I came on full time, I decided to take in the cat while he was in prison. And he got out, and he had this cat, and he had been called back into court. And I was sitting with him in the back of our ministry center. We have this little sitting lounge, and he realized that if he goes to his court date, he was going to be locked up for a lot longer. And I went back there, and he has Freya on his lap. And I said, "Hey, Mark, are you doing okay?" And he looked up, and this is a man who's very confident and doesn't like to show his emotions to people. And I was very surprised. He looked up at me and he went, "No," and started crying. And I sat next to him with Freya and just cried with him. And it was a very human moment. I think a lot of the times when people hear about Emmaus, they have this certain image in their head of who the men are and who we work with. But they're guys, and they love their pets and they love their families, and they make mistakes, and they cry with us.
Are there themes across the stories of the lives of the men that you encounter and serve?
Yeah, so the bulk of the men that we work with, we found have been sexually abused as kids. Addiction plays a very big part in their, sometimes in getting them into prostitution, but also keeping them in that cycle that they get trapped in. There's often a lack of other resources, either from family, sometimes education. There's a fair amount of mental illness.
Talk about the ways that Emmaus helps rebuild lives.
Our ministry director likes to say that our drop-in center is like an ICU. When the men come in, they're cold and tired and hungry, and we sit with them and we have a meal with them. I play a lot of Scrabble and Rummy with them. We start a lot of our ministry with the men by just being. There's a story that I heard from you, Al, just a couple of weeks ago about a man who came and sat with our founder, John Green, at their ministry center at the time, and they went to eat dinner, and everybody started grabbing things off of the table and putting it on the plate, and he got really quiet, and John was like, what's going on? He's like, "I've never done this before. Never been at a family table." And so a lot of our first steps for our guys is being a family with us.
Why is it important that Emmaus is Christ-centered?
For most of our men, the thing that's going to make the biggest difference, if they can really understand and internalize God's love for them. There's a lot of things that we can offer to these men, and we do. And we see men take small steps, and we're very happy for that. Most of the men that I know personally who have managed to move beyond the lots of issues that are the things that are confronting them, most of them have done so because they came to really understand that God loves them right where they are.
Al, talk about the performances and music that you and your wife developed for Emmaus.
So I was brought on staff about 15 years ago now to develop this program that we call Stories from the Streets. We interviewed a number of our men and used those interviews, transcribed them, and created monologues so that we could tell some of our men's stories in their own words. I've been writing songs for a long time. My wife and I do the singer-songwriter thing. So I wrote songs based off of things that some of our men said, and we wove that into about an hour-long program. We're doing our second version of that now, and working on another. And it's just powerful. We realized early on that it's kind of hard for people to really understand who our men are. They're invisible to begin with. Most people don't really even think about them existing. And then once you do acknowledge that there are men out there who are selling themselves on the streets just to survive, most people wonder, why would you do that? So it was important for us to back up and just tell their stories and show that these men that we're working with now used to be somebody's little boy, and things happened in their life. Some mistakes maybe they made, but a lot of things that they didn't really have a good choice to begin with. And if we can tell those stories, we allow people into their lives.
Thank you, Al and Haley, for coming today and sharing about your awesome work at Emmaus Ministries. Many blessings to you.
Thank you.
I'm Jackie Marquez for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.